In a dark place, a man continues fighting against the undead who keep coming no matter what he does. He knows this is the underworld, and that his body can endure it, but fighting endlessly simply makes no sense to him. He keeps cutting down hordes of undead and shouts that he is the king of humans, the hero of his people, and a damned saint compared to most others. Suddenly, a great red being appears, and the man calls out to the ruler of the underworld, asking what he wants with someone like him. The great being disappoints the king, while the man demands how he dares treat a king as powerful as himself in such a way. The ruler of the underworld finishes taking a drag from his pipe, calls the man an idiot, and asks if he has finally gone completely insane. He knows everything about him and how powerful he felt his entire life. He is the boy who could steal anything, the monk who kills, and the king who led his people into battle. Yet before him now, he is nothing but a worthless sinner. He is merely a man who went to war, a sinner who burned homes for fun, and who cut off a child's head simply because she refused to fight. Yes, he is indeed a king, but to reach that throne, he killed many people. Too many to count. So he should just keep quiet and realize this is his eternal hell, and that the ruler here is not him. He will only escape when all the lives he has taken are satisfied with his suffering. Until then, he will continue being torn apart again and again. The man screams, his mind barely grasping the fate that awaits him. Later, an official of the king of the underworld, Noming, is truly impressed by the king's incredible display of power and acting and remarks that he shouldn't keep repeating the same thing for 300 years straight. It will eventually lose its impact. However, Noming feels somewhat sad because he suddenly announces his retirement. Though he has a successor, Tilbo, there are still some flaws in him. The king thinks he is doing quite well for someone like him, but Noni reveals that many people there are struggling because of him. The king finds that natural, since sinners must endure terrible moments there in order to cleanse themselves of their sins. Eventually, they arrive at the underworld's palace, and Nomen comments that all he needs to do now is begin the judgment of reincarnation. The king feels a bit nervous, but thanks Noming for everything he has done for him over the years. He will not forget him even after reincarnating. Noming tells him it is good he keeps that promise. But when the king opens the doors, the talkative Noming is shocked to see a lush green forest before him. Noming remarks that the river around it should be flowing with blood, but now there is only crystal and water. Birds sing instead of sinners screaming, and the whole place now looks like a vacation spot. Naturally, Noming is furious at this sight, since Tulbo was supposed to be in charge. But that fool is nowhere to be found. The cauldron that should have been filled with boiling tar and people simmering in agony could now be used for soup. Everything is filled with rainwater, and where is that bastard? Noming tells King Yeomra that he should turn back, since this place certainly isn't meant for him. Yeomra refuses, for he longs to reincarnate with every fiber of his being. Noming grows angry at him for thinking of reincarnation now, but Yeomra feels he deserves it. He worked tirelessly all these years, but if that wretch isn't here, he cannot move on to his second life. Suddenly, his vision begins to blur as Noming tries to say something to him, his entire being descending into chaos. But that is when Noming snaps him out of the trance and shouts for him to dodge. Unfortunately, the holy strike descending upon him still manages to hit, and God himself has come to make a request of Yeomra. He wants him to search for Tilbo, but Yeomra refuses, saying it is Tilbo's fault for having neglected them so much. Why should he go when his service is already over? God says something inaudible, which Yeomra dislikes as it is spoken in a commanding tone. But now he cannot reincarnate, for he is incompetent in every way. Yet now he is no longer one of his servants, for he has retired. Perhaps he has grown senile enough to forget, so if he could kindly step aside, that would be great. With enough energy, Yeomra manages to push God, who slowly closes the gate he created and returns to his place. But before it closes completely, Yeomra teleports to the gate and forces it wide open. He will not leave, for he wants to reincarnate, so he will find Tilbo. But he vows that one day he will pay for this. With that, he crosses the gate and is transported to the skies above the city. Yet when he falls to the ground, he realizes there is fire everywhere. And when some people start running toward him, he notices something else emerging from the flames: the dead. These wretches should be in the underworld, not here in human world. One of them manages to capture a little girl and prepares to eat her. But Yeomra instantly rushes at him and hurls him far away. He also smells blood everywhere. All the dead turn their gaze to him as he asks if they have gone mad. Was the underworld not enough for their tiny brains? For now they have committed a sin before him, one that is unforgivable. The deceased are beings that appear after a human dies. They are sent to hell by the judges and pay the price for the sins committed during their lives in the 8 hells. The souls that repent after receiving punishment are reincarnated into a new life. That is the rule of the dead. But Yeomra cannot believe they actually dared to rise to the surface. Naturally, the deceased probably cannot even hear him in advance regardless, just as Yeomra expected. But he will do as the ancients once did and strike them down into a second death. He keeps doing this until a small deceased one appears before him, which throws Yeomra into a furious state. He repeatedly smashes the face of the deceased into the ground until a cloud of dust rises and even the other dead stop in shock. Yeomra asks if they will not attack anymore. Perhaps they only understand violence. Suddenly, something sharp shoots out from the horde of the dead and flies toward Yeomra. who dodges the strike with agility. Noming asks if he is alright, but Yamra is more focused on his next opponent. As the dead part to make way for him, he emerges from the fire with a human head in his hand and a wicked grin. Yamra senses something different about this one, for his aura is unlike the others and a thick stench of blood surrounds him. As soon as he sees his next target, the new deceased drops his old toy and goes to claim a new one. Noning wonders aloud if they should just kill this rude bastard, but Yamra has already made up his mind, which surprises Noming. The undead hurls his weapon again, and Yamra wonders why he killed so many humans. Perhaps he is absorbing their vitality in the hope of reincarnation. Yet as he picks up his weapon and throws it again, Yamra notes that something like that should be impossible. Reincarnation without judgment is considered an infernal taboo, but even knowing this, his one successor still allowed them all to roam free. So Yamra decides he will do them a favor and burn every sinner he encounters. With that, he strikes the deceased with a mighty blow, and then again and again, until the creature is launched against a nearby building. Yamra walks over, cracking his neck, and plants his foot upon the sinner's head, demanding to know why he killed so many people in order to reincarnate. He had better have a good answer. Yamra keeps asking as he kicks his head, but the deceased seizes the chance to crawl from the rubble and attack. Yamra thinks there must be a reason behind all this killing, since he is far too weak for someone who supposedly absorbs so much vitality. Perhaps he overestimated him. The deceased picks up a stone and charges Yamra, who finds the plan ridiculous. But that is when several other dead rise from below and begin holding him down, allowing the other to grin as he slams Yamra's head repeatedly, laughing like a lunatic the whole time. Suddenly, Yamra slices his hand off with a single strike and asks, "Why did you stop laughing? Is it no longer funny?" With this final taunt, Yamra unleashes the true fury of hell upon the sinner, whose flesh begins to burn as the attack continues and engulfs the entire area. Yamra climbs atop a building and looks back as the moon glows as red as himself. He asks the dead if they will now obey. All of them turn crimson and begin bowing before their true ruler. But Yamra is not finished yet. He still must punish them properly. He will first proclaim their sins. The sin of escape, the sin of chaos, and the sin of harming humans are all extremely grave sins, so he will sentence them accordingly. 700 years for chaos, 2,000 years for escape, and those who harm humans are sentenced to another 10,000 years. With the sentence given, he opens a portal to the place where they will serve their punishments. The lush green land confuses them since it doesn't look that bad, but Yamra tells them to get inside at once. He doesn't care how beautiful it looks or anything of the sort. Kicking them through, he announces that they will work on humidifying the place, which means removing everything green in the area by hand, of course. When the portal closes, one of the dead tries to say something, but Yamra shuts it in his face. Noming wonders what the deceased was trying to say, and Yamra replies that he was probably saying he will work hard now. Noming also announces that some other dead had been fleeing earlier. Should he chase them too? Yamra asks why he's only being told now, but whatever. Where did they go? Nomang says they went to something called a school. Inside this school, a woman and some students are trying to find an exit, but the hallways are filled with corpses. The woman, whose name is Li Juwu and who is a gravedigger, tells the others they must find another path. One boy wonders if they're going to die, but the spoiled girl snaps, asking if Ju isn't a gravedigger. Why is the hunter of the dead so weak now? She's seen other gravediggers before who had supernatural powers, but this one seems like just a normal person. Ju explains that she hasn't yet found a corpse to lend her its robes, but she promises to protect them. There's no need to worry. Because of their pointless chatter, some of the dead appear and spot them on the staircase. Ju tells the children to go up while she handles a single corpse. It pushes her back a little, but as soon as another student opens the door, she manages to kick the corpse away and tells them to keep moving forward. She'll catch up once she's done. But being an idiot, the spoiled girl ends up being grabbed by a corpse that can barely climb the stairs, which prepares to devour her flesh before it can bite her and spare the world from her stupidity. Ju throws herself in the way and is bitten instead. The pain is sharp, but it allows her to kick the corpse away and ask the girl if she's alright. The girl shoves her hand aside and tells her not to touch her, saying she almost died because of her. How can she even call herself a gravedigger? Ju feels a bit irritated, but she's still glad the girl is unharmed. She runs to close and lock the door. The corpses pound and push against it constantly, which makes one student say they'll probably break it down. But Ju just hopes the maker of the door knew what he was doing, and she fires a flare into the air. She tells everyone that her superior will be here soon, so all they have to do now is wait. One student gets angry at her, asking how she dares laugh instead of solving the problem. If elites like them die, the entire nation will be lost. Ju is rather surprised by such idiotic words, but the girl adds that she should be a gravedigger, yet she's not even a little bit useful. She nearly died because Ju is extremely stupid. She should know her father is extremely rich and won't like hearing she was hurt. Suddenly, Yamra appears and observes that for spoiled brats, they sure talk a lot of crap. The annoying girl asks who he is to judge her and how he got there. Yamra tries to say that he is the king of the underworld, but every time he does, thunder strikes down and blocks his words. He knows this is God's doing, but the girl thinks he must just be insane. One student smacks Yaomura's chest and demands how he dares act that way towards Celio. Does he even know who she is? Yaomura explains that he came because he was pursuing the dead, and indeed the stench of human blood is everywhere. He also heard them from below, so he simply jumped up here. All the students laugh in his face since chasing corpses sounds like a joke. He looks like a beggar, but thinks he can fight. What a joke. Nomeng asks Yaomura if he should just kill them, but Yaomura says they're only children. They should be left alone. In truth, it's their parents' fault for giving them such a twisted education. So when the parents die and end up in hell, he will give them the punishment they truly deserve. Naturally, the student gets angry at such an obvious provocation and asks how a punk like him dares insult people he doesn't even know. Juwoo tries to step between them and tells them not to fight, but the student tells her to shut up and get out of the way. This isn't her battle. When she insists, he shoves her with a slap, which allows Yaomura to see that she has been bitten by a corpse. It also makes him wonder if she can really endure until help arrives. He also feels that she looks familiar from somewhere, but his thoughts are interrupted by the student, who is already irritated with his distraction and declares that he'll show them how frightening they can be. If his father went to hell, the king of the underworld would cry and beg for forgiveness, apologizing non-stop. Upon hearing that Yaomura is the king of the underworld, he bursts out laughing. He tries to hold it back but cannot, finding it all far too hilarious. The student asks why this bastard is laughing so much. Is he being funny? Whatever. It doesn't matter now. He'll beat this bastard and let his father handle everything as he always does. Nomeng tries to warn him to stop, but he doesn't listen. Then the attack comes and the student's fist burns when it ends. God, also known as the Jade Emperor, tries to contain the situation, but Nomeng says it's already too late, as things have gone completely out of control. Ju steps in front of Yaomura before he is struck and tells him to dodge instead of just standing still. She starts coughing blood from her wounds, but still tells him to stay back because she'll protect him no matter what. The student has had enough. Now this bitch is making him look like the villain. But if she doesn't know her place, he'll show her what it is. Whenever Yaomura sees a sinner, his eyes widen and the instincts of the king of the underworld take over. The student demands that he release his hand because it hurts and says he'll kill him if he doesn't. Yaomura remarks that killing someone isn't as easy as he thinks, which frightens the student and surprises Juwoo. He keeps squeezing his hand until it turns purple, and finally lets go, which gives the student a surge of confidence. He declares that he doesn't care, he'll kill him. He'll tell his father everything and then throw his body to the dead. They won't even touch him, since he's so filthy. Yaomura is surprised this brat still hasn't come to his senses, as he continues threatening people for no reason. At this point, Yaomura shouldn't even be speaking to him, since he's no different from the deceased. Both only respond to violence, a tool used against sinners from the very beginning. He picks up a piece of wood while saying this, and after cleaning it, announces that he'll give it a name. Does anything come to mind when he looks at it? A student doesn't understand what he's talking about, but his friend says it looks like Harry Potter's wand. Yaomura confirms that it really does and immediately smacks the student's backside with it. By now, he should fully understand the situation. For his actions, his sentence is a beating with Harry Potter's wand. Yaomura continues thrashing him with a piece of wood, making the student scream in pain. Nomeng is shocked by his master's actions, as are the others, who gape at the sight of such a thing happening right before them. Yaomura even acts like a maniac as he does it, which hardly helps. But once he's finished, and the student's backside is as red as a tomato, he asks if this punishment was enough to make him behave better. He had better reflect from now on, or Yaomura will return to beat him with Harry Potter again. Suddenly, the spoiled girl starts screaming, for the dead are climbing the building, stacking themselves one on top of another. She wonders what they can do, but Juwoo stands in front of her. Everyone must go down. She'll buy enough time for them to escape. The girl refuses, insisting that there are too many dead waiting below. Juwoo confirms that all the dead are here, climbing up, so they must flee while they still can. With that, they start working on the walk, and Juwoo tells Yaomura to go with them as well, since she promises to take care of things here. He notes that in his life he's seen many people, but none like her. Why is she helping people like those when she could just save herself? She's been insulted, ignored, even hurt. These wretches will never know the grace of kindness, and yet she risks her life to protect them. Juwoo karate chops him on the head and says that for a boy, he sure talks a lot of deep nonsense, but it's better for him to stop talking and head down too, since it's getting far too dangerous for him to stay. Yaomura observes that she truly is unpredictable, but since she's here, this woman will not die a meaningless death. When he tries to unleash his technique, the Jade Emperor stops him and tells him not to interfere. He should go and find Telbo. Yaomura asks how he can say that in this situation, and the Jade Emperor answers that he doesn't care whether she dies or not. He must not interfere. At that moment, the students slip behind the door and shut it, with the boy who was beaten shouting that Yaomura will be eaten alive. He never should have laughed in his presence. He'll die along with that useless woman. Yaomura has had enough and tells Nomeng to take care of them, which Nomeng gladly accepts. One of the dead lunges at Yaomura, but Juwoo jumps in first and shields him, even as she is bitten over and over again. Now he is simply confused. Why is she doing all this? Ju answers with a question of her own. Does he need a reason to protect people? Yamra certainly did not expect that reply and is deeply moved by it. Yet the Jade Emperor keeps insisting that he go after Telbo, even though he doesn't know where to search. The dead are running rampant and innocent people like this woman are dying. And still, he dares try to stop him. Yamra understands that all of this is meant to uphold God's rules, which are mostly good. But because of his negligence, many are suffering. So he will not stand idle while innocents are tortured. He will burn all sin and save this woman. With a single strike, he wipes out all the dead and tells Ju that he has a job offer for her. Naturally, the Jade Emperor tries to stop him, but Yamra refuses to listen again and tells Ju that her salary will be enormous and she'll have full insurance. She'll be able to take as many vacations as she wants, and when she retires, she can reincarnate as the wealthy daughter of a powerful man. He is basically inviting her to work in God's place. When Ju loses consciousness, she mutters that it would be a great job. Yamra is surprised that she still has strength and lays her on the ground, asking if she's alright. Ju checks her wound and realizes how severe the bleeding is. It's already too late for her. Perhaps they will meet again in the next life. Yamra will not allow her to die after inviting her, so he removes his hairband and uses the manifestation of the underworld to pull her into a white, serene world. He notes that she is the first person to come here with her body intact, but regardless, he welcomes her to the first underworld he personally created. Ju asks him to repeat that, as she can't believe she's literally in the underworld. But after walking around, it doesn't feel like just a mental trick, and her wounds are practically healed as well, which she sees as an opportunity. She asks to be officially hired as an employee, but also asks Yamra's name, since she still doesn't know it. Yamra says it's nothing much, just the king of the entire underworld, though she may call him Yamra, and perhaps she's curious about him now. Naturally, Ju is quite shocked to stand before the king of the underworld, certainly not something that happens every day. But Yamra pulls her out of her trance by asking her name. She answers, and Yamra ties his hairband around her arm, saying that now she's become like the gods. She will never grow old and see her grandchildren or die beside those she loves. She will only live forever. Ju simply likes the hairband because it's pretty and asks what exactly it is. Yamra would like to answer, but when the sky suddenly turns red, it seems someone's about to appear, so he decides they better move. Yamra explains to Ju that what she holds is a thread of fate. If she doesn't keep it with her at all times, she won't be able to survive here, no matter what. Ju asks if they'll be separated if she doesn't have it, and Yamra confirms that, in a way, yes, she would probably have her head cut off in an instant. Eventually, she wakes back in the real world, where a colleague named Minho is desperately trying to wake her. He's extremely relieved when she finally opens her eyes, since she hadn't stirred at all. Minho keeps talking, but Ju's mind is elsewhere, wondering if what just happened was real or not. She asks how she got there as she stands up, and Minho explains that they received her emergency signal, and thanks to that, there were no casualties. Right now, they're dealing with the dead in the area, as she can see. Ju asks about the students she was protecting, and Minho explains that they're fine. They were all hiding in a classroom. But there was something strange about them. He doesn't know how to explain it, but some seem to have a sticky substance on their bodies, as if something large had licked them. She's quite surprised to hear this, and Minho admits it sounds strange. But while he continues speaking, Ju looks down and thinks of Yamra, since the thread of fate is still in her hand. That means what she experienced was no dream. As she reflects on what to do, a person named Park approaches and asks if she's alright. Ju says she is and thanks her for the concern, but Park tells her to shut up, saying she only cared because of that ability of hers. And besides, she had better not be late to work tomorrow, even after all that's happened. As always, Ju lowers her head and accepts it. Minho shows up and pats her shoulder lightly, telling her not to take Park's words seriously. She truly was worried, so much so that she ran over as soon as she heard Ju might be in danger. Ju believes it was only because of work, but Minho doubts it. With that, Ju was escorted to a taxi, and Minho wishes her a good night's rest. In the car, Ju thinks of the children she saved, glad they are safe, but also looks at the thread of fate and remembers what Yamra said. If she loses it, it's over. While she wonders what exactly it is, Noming suddenly appears beside her and comments that now she's in direct contact with the underworld. She screams so loudly the car jolts, and the driver asks if she's okay. Ju covers it up by saying she saw a bug, but then whispers and asks who that weird little ball is. Nomeng introduces himself as Yamra's advisor, and Ju asks if other people can see him. Nomeng confirms that normal people cannot, but when Ju tries to use honorifics with him, he complains that it's too cringe. They should just speak casually. With that settled, she asks where Yamra is, and Nomeng explains that he's with the students she mentioned. However, if he went personally, things might already be over for those bastards. Ju remembers Yamra's manic behavior when punishing that student, so she tells the driver to change the route. She'll pay double if he drives fast. In a needlessly large building, Yamra wonders how many seconds it would take him to bring down the structure. Well, that means the sinners can't escape so easily, so it's not entirely bad. He sees a man passing through the automatic door and notes that their behavior is quite interesting. As he walks toward the glass, the man tries to warn him that he's about to hit a literal glass wall, but Yamra simply pushes with such force that the glass cracks and eventually shatters, allowing him to enter the building. The others are shocked, since no man could do that to the highest quality glass in the country. Yamra understands why they're afraid, but he only wants them to hand over the sinners. Now, naturally, everyone flees at the sight of him, but a strange woman is unfazed by his arrival. In fact, she seems quite pleased to see that he has such energy. Is this man truly the king of the underworld? It is then that Yamra notices her and simply watches. His gaze, however, does not last long, for he instantly teleports to her without anyone noticing and begins staring at her with a confused expression. Now she knows he is the king of the underworld, but why is he staring so intently? She asks if there's a problem, and Yamra points at her, asking who she is. The woman laughs and comments that his attitude hasn't changed at all. He still can't remember people's faces, so she will introduce herself. Her name is Biku, and one day, she too lived in the underworld. Suddenly, her greeting is interrupted by a voice, that idiotic boy asking some hesitant men if they brought what he wanted. They confirm but say it isn't a good idea. Even so, the boy doesn't care and orders them to obey as they should. Yamra is overjoyed to have found him so easily and prepares to leap forward, but Biku stops him and asks him to listen before deciding to blow the place apart. Is it really that important to punish him now? Yamra says it is very important even if she doesn't understand. Judges and police in this world may close their eyes to people's crimes. He knows most are greedy and corrupt. Perhaps they even consider certain matters insignificant, but he cannot let something like that pass. As king of the underworld, he must always punish a sinner. Many people have suffered because of this boy, so Yamra will make sure his punishment fits his crimes. Biku is shocked by his words and lets him go. Yamra instantly teleports in front of the student, who is stunned to see him alive, since he left him trapped on a rooftop full of the dead. But Yamra reminds him that he already warned that it would be useless. He also realizes that the boy hasn't reflected at all on his actions, so once again, he will be beaten by Perry Hodder. Biku wonders if she heard that correctly, but the boy immediately drops to his knees and begs him not to do it. The staff manage to call the guards, who for some reason weren't at the entrance, and set them against Yamra. When all of them are about to be sent straight back to hell, Biku simply raises her hand and tells them to leave him alone. He is not an enemy. Instantly, the guards retreat, and Yamra is surprised at the level of authority this woman holds in that place. She must be a good leader, but who is she? Really? The student, also known as Young Master, takes the chance to flee, which irritates Yamra. But one of the Young Master's bodyguards stops him, saying he is the son of President Kang. Yamra asks why it matters, so the bodyguard explains bluntly. That boy is the son of the president of the Kang Sung Group, the third largest conglomerate in Korea. He holds more influence in the business world than anyone. Yamra asks again why that matters. Seeing that this fool won't understand, the bodyguard grabs him and tries to slam him against the wall, but he can't even make him budge. He struggles desperately to knock him down, but even with all his strength, Yamra doesn't move. Yamra asks if he really expects him to view that boy in a better light just because he's the son of an important man. Is he really that stupid? The bodyguard wonders what kind of beast he has just provoked. Yamra remarks that money is not power, so he should stop spouting nonsense and return to his post. But the man probably thinks it's fine to commit crimes just because he has influence. This is like when a sentence is reduced because someone is deemed physically or mentally weak. But unfortunately for him, this is not that kind of world, or he probably doesn't even understand. The bodyguard tells him not to think he can do whatever he wants, because he knows how to use power too. He begins ripping his shirt, and before anyone has to censor the scene, transforms his body into steel with an ability called Iron Fist, which lets him move much faster and strike Yamra with a double blow. It allows him to push even further and hit Yamra with such force that he is hurled away. Believing he has won, the bodyguard starts showing off his ability to absolutely no one because of his small ego. But that's when Biku says it's a shame, because in addition to being a complete loser, he's also an idiot. Oh, and you should probably look behind him. That's when Yamra instantly teleports behind him and remarks that he has just become a sinner. The bodyguard still has time to turn and see a fist flying toward him, which connects, but Yamra notes that he is more resilient than he first appeared. The bodyguard asks how he is still standing after what he endured, but insists he won't let him rise again. He tries to strike Yamra with everything he has, but Yamra easily dodges all of the blows and wonders why he is wearing a shroud. Humans really are good at coming up with the craziest things. Tired of him, Yamra kicks him in the face and then spins into a flying kick that lands squarely on the bodyguard's ugly face. He has finally reached judgment. For his first punishment, he will have to survive this punch, though Yamra does not recommend it, as it may leave him with a broken neck. The bodyguard admits that he is completely outclassed in every category: strength, speed. Just who is this man? One thing is certain, this is no human. The blow drives the bodyguard's head into the ground like an ostrich. Biku expected nothing less from Yamra, but she senses something has changed, as if he is weaker than before. Suddenly, he calls her name and asks why humans use shrouds, since those are garments of the dead and should never be worn by mortals. Biku tells him not to worry so much, it's just a form of protection for everyone. It's been more than 20 years since the dead arrived in this world, and at first, humans truly struggle to protect themselves. Yamra asks if they cannot fight without using shrouds, so Biku explains that humans are far weaker than the dead. When they cross the river Styx, they are bitten by monsters and forced to run for hundreds of years to avoid being crushed. Some plow the land with weights no human could lift. The more criminal a sinner was in life and the longer he serves, the more superior he becomes to humans. However, some of the dead chose to repent and lent their shrouds to humans. That is how humanity gained the power to fight back. Most become something called gravediggers and battle any dead they encounter. But like this foolish bodyguard, they can also choose a far more selfish path. Yamra makes a strange face as though he doesn't understand, but Noming explains that the shroud was an inevitable choice. She should get straight to the point since Yamra is hopeless when it comes to explanations. Biku is very glad to see him and asks how long it's been since they last met. Noming says about 300 years, but Yamra asks why she's acting as if they know each other. Has she been going to the human world without permission? Noming is shocked he doesn't recognize her, but Biku comments that it has indeed been a long time. Even so, Yamra still doesn't understand who she is and assumes she's just a normal human. Seeing that the fool isn't getting it, Biku asks who the woman standing there is. Ju introduces herself and Biku is surprised to see she's human and a gravedigger. No less. What is she doing here after all? Noming says it's a long story, but for now she's in circumstances similar to theirs. Biku pities her, but Yamra says she doesn't need pity since she's been hired to work in God's place. Though Biku should reveal who she is, since perhaps he'll hire her too. With that, Biku explains that she is the 12th honorary sign, Axis, and her role was as Tilbo's assistant. They move into another room and Biku tells Yamra she doesn't know how hell ended up that way. She simply appeared there, as if she'd been teleported. Yamra asks if she knows where Tilbo is, but she doesn't, which makes him shout in frustration, since he thought he had finally found that bastard. Biku apologizes for not being helpful, but Yamra says it's fine, since this is more about Tilbo than anyone else. Still, he wonders how things reached this point. He has yet to confirm if something truly happened to Tilbo, but all this chaos makes him think perhaps Tilbo orchestrated it on purpose, which is hard to accept, since it would make the situation far more complicated. Biku realizes he may be lacking information, so to compensate, she has been working hard on many fronts, and she is certain this piece of paper will help him. Yamra observes that she must be very good at her work, and asks if she wants a job in the divine workplace. She refuses, which he understands he wouldn't want to work there either. Biku changes the subject and asks about Juu, since she hasn't seen her around for some time. Yamra explains that she was sent on a simple mission, her first one in fact, so it shouldn't take long. Right now, she's chasing the young master through the city with a magic wand, leaving people around them wondering what's going on. When Yamra gave her the task, he handed her his magic wand, which made her beg him to stop thinking about beating that student. But he told her she was the one who almost died because of that bastard, so he was doing her a favor by letting her handle it for him. She agreed and asked what she was supposed to do with it, and since Yamra was being called by Biku, he rushed the explanation. Her task is simple. She just has to shout like this while swinging the magic wand. She's doing it now and yelling things like burn the sinner and other words that make the student run even faster, but it's extremely embarrassing for her. Now she understands why that woman pitied her, and too ashamed to look, she bumps into someone and apologizes repeatedly. But when the person turns around, it turns out to be Park, who immediately scolds her for not resting as she was ordered to. She quickly apologizes for her behavior, but Park pulls her back and says they'll deal with that later. Right now, she needs her help. Ju asks what she must do just as a strange figure with a wicked smile walks down the street beside them. Park reveals that they need to take care of this guy no matter the cost. Ju asks if they should subdue this dead one right now, but Park refuses, saying he will flee if they go after him, since he is a master of escapes and tricks. They will only follow him and look for any opening for a surprise attack. Ju asks why he keeps looking everywhere, and Park explains that he is on patrol, but she knows how hard that may be to believe. Whenever he passes through an area, soon after, a massive dead one appears to devastate it. Perhaps this man is his subordinate, but he definitely has something to do with it. After observing him for a while, Park thinks that maybe his main goal is to remove every obstacle in the way. Unfortunately, the student is found by that dead one, and Park runs desperately to reach him. But even though she is faster than most humans, she arrives too late, and the undead lands a powerful strike. However, the boy does not end up as a puddle of blood, because Ju manages to catch him and land directly on a pile of trash. Park congratulates her for being so agile and rushes to attack, determined not to fail a second time. No matter what, he will pay for his sins. She activates her mantle, Stigma of the Scholar, and with a massive hammer, she hurls the dead one away. She then orders Ju to evacuate the civilian and call for reinforcements immediately, which Ju agrees to do, but demands that Park hold out at all costs. Park tells her to hurry, since her stigma isn't combat-oriented, but she is shocked to see the dead one already recovered from the blow. She can't afford to be surprised and must dodge the attack at any cost. She trades strikes with him to slowly escape his range, but the undead wasn't even aiming at her. He wanted her weapon first. When he gains the advantage by making her float, he lands a punch, though she still manages to hit him with her hammer. Even so, the attack seems to have no effect. Park realizes that if she doesn't touch the ground soon, she won't be able to strike with more force and will be at that bastard's mercy. Suddenly, the dead one activates his own mantle, a phantom bat, and grabs Park, slamming her against the walls repeatedly before leaving her embedded in one. Believing it's over, he prepares for the finishing blow. But at that moment, someone knees him hard. That someone is Ju-woo, who came to the rescue. Park asks if reinforcements will arrive soon, and Ju-woo says she contacted someone and he'll be here shortly. Park insists this isn't an ordinary dead one, since he can use mantles, and they'd need at least 2 level 1 gravediggers and several of lower levels to defeat him. And yet Ju-woo was such a complete idiot that she dared to call only one person. Ju-woo dodges the dead one's strike and defends herself, saying they won't die, at least not in this life. Park wonders what nonsense this idiot is spouting, but she also notices that Ju-woo is much sharper in combat. Maybe that red thing really is some kind of mantle. The undead is wounded, but has had enough of their attacks, so he retreats before crouching down and beginning to circle Ju-woo repeatedly. Park warns her to be careful, because he's about to use his ability. Indeed, the dead one turns invisible as he possesses the skill of stealth. Ju-woo desperately tries to figure out where the invisible dead one is, but she finds out soon enough when he strikes her from behind, leaving her barely able to block. It seems the dead one is using a hit-and-run tactic, disappearing as soon as the strike is over, forcing her to search for him again. She can only predict, and when she looks behind after hearing the wind shift, the dead one is actually at her side and lands a successful blow. He vanishes once more, leaving Ju completely disoriented, unsure where to even look. On top of that, the bell hanging from his ear throws her off as well, probably on purpose. Could she even win a fight like this? Suddenly, Park warns of an attack coming from 3 o'clock, and sure enough, Ju manages to dodge completely, something the dead one does not appreciate at all. Ju asks Park how she knew his position, and Park explains it is the ability of her mantle, Enigma of the Scholar. Anything she strikes at least once can never escape her vigilant gaze. Park says she will guide Ju in this battle, and all Ju needs to do is trust her. Ju agrees immediately and even closes her eyes to show how much she trusts her. Park seems touched at first, but soon starts yelling at her because doing something like that is extremely idiotic in a fight. Does she want to die? Ju quickly apologizes, and Park notes she has watched far too many movies. This is a real battle, and they need to be cautious. She instantly calls out the position of the next attack as it comes, and each time Ju manages to land more blows on the dead one, who can do nothing but take hit after hit. This continues until it resembles a one-sided beating, which a strange person, a disciple named John Mucci, also comments on. He hadn't expected gravediggers these days to be so terrifying, but since he was the one who sent this guy on patrol, he should probably step in, or it would be a real shame if a dead one with such promising talent were to disappear. Besides, he would rather avoid being scolded by that person. With that, he descends and asks them to stop beating up his friend. Ju immediately glares at him and demands to know who he is, but Park tells her to fall back. Since this is one of the big shots she had mentioned earlier, this is the disciple John Uchi. He's a little confused that she would call him a big shot when he looks so scrawny, but he is pleased they know who he is. Now to the matter at hand. Could he take his friend back? There are very few dead who can use stealth. It's a rare talent, so he's basically asking for a favor, strange as it sounds. But before he can finish, he's met with a hammer blow to the face as Park declares they will never negotiate with the dead. She tells Ju to fall back, since the only reason the dead are capable of such intelligence and communication is because Uchi finishes the sentence as he attacks, that it means certain dead have slaughtered a massive number of people. Though he's surprised she already knew that, he still scoffs that she dared approach him while being so weak. Ju shouts for Park, and when Uchi throws her to the ground, he's surprised the girl still has the will to attack after seeing her senpai brutalized right before her eyes. A truly courageous girl, but she should know he despises people like her. He invokes the sin of Jur, Taoist priest, to create a massive tornado that slashes Ju repeatedly. Uchi begins to laugh and asks, "Well now, do you still feel like attacking? Why do you even care about that old woman? You've got your whole life ahead of you. You should just run away now." That's how humans are, completely pathetic, always thinking only of themselves. Everyone is an animal that never cares for the lives of others. That is their true nature. Uchi finishes his attack, certain that the girl will flee because of her injuries. But what he sees next enrages him even more, for instead of running away, she chooses to protect that woman even though she could escape. He asks why she would protect something at this point, but Ju does not answer, which only irritates him further. In today's world, no one does such a thing because their own lives are the most important. Altruism leads nowhere. Ju would like to tell him 2 things. First, that she doesn't need a reason to save someone, and second, that now he has committed a sin. As soon as she finishes her sentence, Uchi feels a desperate instinct not even to breathe. After that, the protagonist tells him that he has sinned, and he cannot even look in their direction. It is not that he cannot. He simply will not, because he knows the real danger is right behind him. He grips his talisman tightly and prepares for the worst, But Yahello approaches Juwoo and asks if she is alright, since she looks badly hurt. Juwoo says she is fine, but they need to do something for Park, as she is barely breathing at this point, and her cloak is also beginning to fade. With a simple wave of his hand, Yahello envelops the two of them within his domain. He tells Juwoo that she doesn't need to worry because he is there. Juwoo feels grateful to have such a kind employer, and Yahello thinks he must have looked quite impressive just now. But his self-image is interrupted by Noming, who appears shouting. Yahello observes that he should begin a conversation with more pleasant words instead of speaking so rudely. Noming tells him to forget that since there is something more important to focus on now, making Yahello ask if he wants to push a millstone for 500 years, as that is the punishment for foul-mouthed individuals. Muchi simply watches, thinking this guy seemed important at first, but now it looks like he worried for nothing. He tries to tell Yahello that he will pay for joking around, but at that moment he is thrown far away by him, and Yahello says he should not even breathe, for any oxygen spent on him would be a waste. Muchi has had enough and asks if Yahello didn't just forgive him. So why is he attacking now? Yahello asks what he is talking about. In the first place, Muchi wasn't even his priority. The most important thing was to take care of his victims. But now he has plenty of time. The two activate their powers at the same time, creating a storm of red and green that flies everywhere. But naturally, Yahello is far stronger, as his attack easily pierces Uchi's cloak. Uchi falls back, but Yahello does not stop with just one strike. He charges forward with his shoulder against Bushi, who in total desperation activates the 8 gates of folly. Yahello just stands still, making Uchi think he managed to trap him, and seals him inside the ability, which begins to cut through. Uchi says that Yahello is like an empty cart, making a lot of noise, but with nothing of value inside. He summons a powerful sword and strikes. Uchi begins to laugh, since no one has ever escaped from his ability before, and Yahello's cloak was completely sealed as a result. It is his complete victory. But at that moment, the ability vanishes completely. Yahello admits that it is a complicated skill, but what was said does not apply to him. That power is not his cloak, is real hellfire, burning from the darkest depths of the underworld. It is a flame that consumes all sinners, and because he has committed many sins, Yahello's power grows ever stronger. Buchi is in complete shock, but Yahello gives him a piece of advice. Don't bite the ground too hard. When the mighty attack is launched directly at him, Buchi refuses to give up and once again activates the seal of the 8 gates, at the same time throwing another sword against the strike. But no matter what he does, the attack keeps coming and his wind cannot do anything against it. This man is trying to extinguish hellfire with little wind spells, but even if he manages to stall it for a moment and slip away, Yahello is right there to punish every move and smashes him with a punch. He continues hurling hellfire over and over again, and Muchi is sick of seeing it, but he has no energy left to move, so the fire engulfs him completely. Muchi feels as though his entire body is about to melt into the ground from the heat. Yahello wonders why he has not turned to ashes yet, but Noming says they cannot do anything more with him because he has passed his sword and cloak on to Tilbo. Noming suggests throwing this man into hell and leaving, since hell and the human world have different concepts of time. Yahello had completely forgotten he could do that, which does not surprise Noming. But he also moved the humans to a safe place for the time being, so Yahello does not need to worry. In addition, he took the magic staff from that woman, which left Yahello very pleased. He really is a good subordinate. Noming remarks that he must be reliable, since his master is completely scatterbrained, making Yahello ask if he really wants to be replaced. While they talk, Muchi tries to escape and run, since this is his only chance, with a monster completely distracted. He must warn that person about this man to avoid him at all costs, because he is far too dangerous for any of them. Unfortunately for him, Yahello notices his attempt to flee and crouches down, asking where he thinks he is going. Because of the situation, Yuchi has to abandon all his pride and begins to beg. What he did was a mistake. He begs for mercy. In his mind, he hopes Yahello will fall for his act, but instead of answering directly, Yahello chooses to tell a story from the past. On a dull day, a woman who had lost her son descended into hell. The king of hell asked why she came there, and she said it was because her son had not survived. The king asked who had caused it, and she said it was the king himself. Since he had been the one to start the war and increase the famine, he was to blame. Unfortunately for her, the king of the underworld already knew everything. In fact, it was he who had started the war and let his own people starve. But because of her actions, she was the true sinner there. And so he discovered that no matter what, sinners are always the same. When they are in a bad situation, they lie and lie instead of being honest, that they despise the idea of the same thing happening to them. They are irritating. That is why he created hell for people like them. Uchi seems defeated upon hearing this, but after thinking for a moment, he begins to tremble. He is no longer afraid. Since he is only the king of the underworld, he will not bow before him, no matter what happens. He activates another wind technique, Wind Dragon, to try to harm Yahello. However, Yahello is already delivering judgment upon him. This sinner feels no shame and has no sense of duty. Remorse is a feeling he has never known. Therefore, as the king of the underworld, Yahello will sever his reincarnation completely. As he channels power into his staff, he begins using Soul Bonsai, first form, Oiken. With one swift motion, he cleaves him in half and ends all of his lives at once. Nomeng watches as Yuchi vanished in mind and body and thinks it had been a long time since he last saw that technique, the Soul Bonsai. Because of the immense power used, Yaomura's magic staff shatters entirely, expected since it was nothing more than an ordinary stick he picked up from the ground. Even so, Nomeng is shocked that Yaomura can still unleash so much power, even without his sword and mantle. It was his own strength that accomplished this and nothing else. After completing his work, Yaomura says they should relax somewhere since they've been awake all day. They deserve to rest. Naturally, the place they go to unwind is Juwoo's apartment, where she asks if he really came there just to relax. Yaomura tells her to sit and make herself comfortable, since even if he's her boss, there's nothing to worry about. He relaxes with a sip of his drink, and Juwoo says she'll do exactly that since of course there's nothing inconvenient about it, right? After all, it's her house. Why should she feel uncomfortable? Yaomura acts innocently and says that's exactly it. He always knew she was clever. Naturally, Juwoo realizes he's mocking her, though she can't spit in his face and she'd surely lose her job. Instead, she suggests he go stay with Baekwoo, since she probably lives in a mansion or something. Yaomura says it's better to sit in the home of a subordinate since going to the house of a stranger like that would be shameful. Juwoo feels that what he said also applies to their situation, but she relents and asks if he wants her to find an apartment for him as well. Yaomura misunderstands one of her words as fart and starts laughing like a silly child, which she compares him to. Having had enough, she explains that she needs privacy, so she can't let him stay there. She'll find a nearby studio for him. Yaomura admits he doesn't know what that is, but since he's been through similar circumstances in the past, he won't oppose her choices and will leave if she's truly uncomfortable. That should prevent any resentment, right? With that, he stands and tries to leave, but before he does, he asks if there are any sinners nearby he can bother. Juwoo knows very well how he deals with such sinners and tells him not to even think about it. He wonders why she's so reluctant. Sinners must be punished at all times. Juwoo points out that his methods are really problematic, so Yaomura promises to be gentle, though she doesn't believe a word. He insists that he really can be gentle. To prove he can't, she gives him an example. There's an old woman nearby with a serious illness. One day, she threw trash by the roadside and didn't pick it up. What would he do to her? Yaomura says she should be thrown into a cauldron of boiling pitch, which makes Juwoo scream, sparking a heated argument with both failing to understand the other's point of view. The quarrel escalates until they're acting like cat and dog, while Nomeng just observes like the beleaguered owner of the two. Seeing Juwoo back down, he hands her the glass of water he was drinking, but when she takes it, she notices the water is blue, very blue. She asks Yaomura where he got it, and he thinks she's trying to start another fight, so Nomeng answers for him. They drew the water from a well. Juwoo assumes the worst, and Yaomura remarks that now that every home has a well, they must really be living well. Juwoo rushes to the bathroom and indeed finds that blue water is coming from the toilet, nearly making her faint on the spot. Yaomura and Nomeng approach, and in a moment of pure comedy, she explains that the water there isn't drinkable. While she explains this situation on top of the toilet, Yaomura sinks deeper and deeper into despair until both he and Nomeng collapse on the floor. After this disaster, Yaomura is given pajamas and starts crying over what he's done, but Juwoo brings real water and says that since things have come to this point, she'll have to take care of him, so they might as well live together. Yaomura is surprised by her change of attitude and shrinks back embarrassed, but in return, she wants her salary doubled, if possible. Yaomura looks at her, and she resembles someone he once knew, who wished to be born as a human in the next life. For that reason, he stands and asks if she descends from a god. Juwoo doesn't understand what he means. What does it mean to descend from a god? Yaomura thinks it's simple and demands an answer, but Nomeng is exhausted by his nonsense, since his idiocy is resurfacing. He barely remembers people's faces. He's always been forgetful. Hasn't he thought that maybe he just confused Juwoo with someone else? Yaomura denies it, saying he truly feels the remnants of a god within her. Nomeng steps closer and tells him to think properly. The person he must be thinking of is Kangrim, but she was completely different from this mortal woman. Does he even remember what her voice sounded like? Yaomura says he'd never forget, but after a silence, Nomeng realizes he actually has. He doesn't blame him for it. Yaomura has always been like that, but this woman's name is Juwoo. If they're going to work together from now on, he should at least memorize her name. She's surprised that Nomeng remembers her name, which means he was paying attention. Even though he's grumpy most of the time, he's quite kind. Yaomura asks how he can be so sure she's not Kangrim, but Nomeng says it's obvious. Kangrim was 10 times better than this woman. She had a certain charm, right? As soon as Juwoo hears that, she flips the bottle upside down and delivers the punishment Nomeng deserves. His screams can be heard even from outside. At night after dinner, the three of them are in bed, with Yaomura sitting on a blanket he really likes, since he's never lived like this before. Nomeng agrees, it's much better than what they had in hell. Yaomura says humans are really doing well these days, and he feels a bit envious of their lifestyle. Juwoo gets up and asks if they like the human world that much, and they confirm, since even the food she cooked was delicious. Again, Nomeng agrees, and the two of them try to remember the name of the soup until they settle on Mr. Kim's soup. Yaomura hadn't expected humans to eat that sort of thing so casually. Nomeng notes that the food was full of the joys and sorrows of an ordinary man named Mr. Kim. When the two of them praise it, Juwoo's face twists in horror since what she served was kimchi soup, not Mr. Kim. But she doesn't correct them. She's far too tired. After chatting a bit, Yamra and Noming seem to share a single brain cell and come up with a brilliant idea. They immediately stand and tuck Juwoo in since she must be exhausted after so much effort. She wonders what got into them all of a sudden, but Yamra just tells her to relax. It's not every day the King of Hell tucks you in, so just take it easy. After putting a face mask on her, the two of them try to sneak into the kitchen, but Juwoo warns them. If they try to sneak any meat, she'll know. Yamra and Noming's faces fall at that, and she's shocked to see that they really were going to do it. They have absolutely no self-control. Juwoo just stares at the ceiling, thinking about everything that happened that day. She met Yamra. She was transported to Hell twice. She captured dead ones with Park's help, and even when she was wounded, her injuries healed when she went to the underworld. That makes her ask Yamra something. If someone enters Hell for the first time, are any wounds or illnesses healed? Nomang says humans improve when they enter, but Yamra notes it's different for the dead. Juwoo wonders if, by continuing to work with him, she'll be able to see someone who's already died. Yamra stands and asks why she'd want to see more dead people, so she explains she wants to see her parents. She wasn't able to protect them before, and she still feels deep sadness because of it. Noming immediately says she can't, she's human. Humans have limits on what they can and cannot do. But when he tries to tell her to give up, Yamra smacks him so hard he faints instantly. Juwoo asks why you did that out of nowhere, but he tells her to be quiet. Noming's just sleeping. They can't wake him now. Juwoo says he's the one who put him to sleep and tries to revive him, but his soul starts drifting out of his body, leaving her even more terrified. Yamra recalls what she said earlier, that she didn't want to lose anyone else, and says that's what she was talking about. Well, since she has a generous personality and a good heart, he has a proposal. If she helps enough in the search for Tulbo, he will allow her to see her parents. Juwoo is stunned by his words and asks if he really promises that. Yamra confirms, and she says now he can't back out. If he does, she'll go to Hell. Yamra says he's already been there, so it wouldn't change much. But she doesn't even listen, already celebrating with Noming's floating soul. Yamra feels a bit happy seeing her so joyful, which means he needs to find Tulbo quickly to keep his promise. Elsewhere, an imposing figure demands that someone repeat what they just said. The one speaking is Yuchi, who bows and says that his alter ego was completely destroyed. It seemed as if his soul had been torn apart. He also discovered the name of the technique that interferes with the soul, Solbanse. Since there's only one person he knows capable of using that ability, there's no doubt Yamra has resurfaced and he's probably coming for them. The imposing voice belongs to Tulbo, who stares at Uchi upon hearing this. Uchi suggests that he sent him some dead ones so he can put an end to that bastard Yamra, but he doesn't even finish the sentence. He's blown apart instantly. Tulbo says he was truly arrogant, and it was pitiful to disrespect the king of the underworld. He summons someone named Gyeonwoo and orders him to take the other dead, since they must hasten the plan. Before Yamra regains all of his strength, the 12 Zodiacs must attack him and stop him. The sword master, Gyeonwoo, confirms he will fulfill the order. The next day, Juwoo receives a call from Bikwu, who apologizes for calling so early, but wanted to know how Yamra was doing. Juwoo goes to check and sees him barking at a little white puppy. That's because they say white dogs ward off spirits. Bikwu nearly goes deaf from Juwoo's screaming and notes that he seems fine. Juwoo apologizes for the interruption and asks her to say what she wanted. Bikwu explains that she wanted to inform Yamra about the new objective, so Juwoo shouldn't go to work today and must assist him instead. On top of that, she should do one more thing for Yamra. His fashion sense is outdated. That's why they are now at a shopping mall, buying stylish clothes for Yamra. He's surprised Bikwu thought of it, but he can't lie. The clothes are quite comfortable. Human technology really is incomparable. Juwoo wonders if they're going to the right place since he seems to be heading to a department store, but Yamra confirms it was written on that paper. Juwoo had forgotten that Bikwu handed it to them and only now sees there was writing on the back as well. She must live a very frugal life. Yamra comments that to live well, one must save diligently, and since the environment is a precious resource, they should recycle everything they can. Juwoo hadn't expected such an answer from the King of Hell, but she's also curious about what kind of paper it is. Yamra explains it's just from an ordinary book, the one that records human deaths. Juwoo knows what that is, the Sangsobu, a book that records lives and people. She immediately confronts him, asking how he could so casually rip out a page from that sacred book, but Yamra remarks she must have stuck it in her pocket or something. Juwoo is about to lose her mind. What will people think when they see this? Yamra tells her to calm down since humans can't read it anyway, but according to what was written here, they need to find the creature around this main area and then find a celebrity. Juwoo is about ready to smack this idiot, but first asks him to explain what he means instead of jumping ahead like a fool. Yamra does exactly that and tells her that the zodiac signs who came into this realm needed to find jobs to survive, and this one in particular was recruited. He doesn't know what that means, but Bikwu said they are celebrities, and she mentioned they'd appear here because of their schedule. Juwoo asks which zodiac sign it is, and Yamra reveals it's the pig. That zodiac sign is Baek Dahae, who at that moment was nearly finished vomiting. She suddenly gets a call from her manager, who asks if she really is that stupid. She had explicitly told her not to eat during the recording, yet she keeps doing it again and again. Can't she realize this? She's on the right track. She needs to take care of herself and her image. Dahat explains that she threw everything she ate into the toilet anyway. A certain melancholy fills her mind as her manager praises her for doing so, but she knows that everything she's doing is the right thing for her. Dahat knows that's all she can do anyway. With that, the manager ends the call. She can't believe that idiot did it again. She can't control herself, almost like a pig. A delivery man asks if he should leave the clothes they ordered there, and the manager immediately shifts her tone, recognizing him as an employee of CH Company and telling him to leave the clothes on the table. The boy leaves after doing as told but notices her attitude and doesn't know what to say. A man who could easily be mistaken for a canon asks what day he said, but the manager doesn't even want to start. She never listens to anyone. And what if they end up on the streets again because of her mistake? He should say something too. The canon says he won't let their money run out while simultaneously losing a bet, which makes him hungry, and he notes they should go eat. As they head out, Dahab stands in front of them, and the canon notices he's disappointed to hear she ate again. Dahab apologizes again, but the canon says it's fine as long as she doesn't do it again. But now she must wait here while they return from their meal. Dahab gathers courage and asks for a bit of food too. She promises she won't eat it now. She'll do it after the filming. The manager can't believe her audacity, but the canon turns and asks if she really is a pig. How many times has he told her she needs to be thin for the photos? One meal a day is far more than she deserves, yet they allow it anyway. Dahat explains she's starting to feel dizzy and almost fainting all the time, and the other actors also had lunch. The canon does his best to imitate a monkey and asks if she's saying they're the villains here. Dahat completely denies it, but the canon grabs her and says it's painful to see her like this. Doesn't she remember the first time they met? He saw her on the street standing like a beggar. He gave her clothes, a roof over her head, and food. He let her live like a normal human being. Only him. Dahe apologizes, saying she didn't mean it that way, but the canon observes that everyone makes mistakes. It's normal for a family to fight like this, right? Dahe's face lights up when she hears that word, and then the others leave, telling her not to do anything funny. But once they're gone, they call her an idiot who believes anything as long as that special word is said. Dahao turns around and starts skipping with her awful shoes, happy that someone recognizes her as family. In an instant, the atmosphere around the area changes and a tall figure begins to speak. It is truly a disaster to see a zodiac sign being treated this way by insignificant humans. However, he will free her from this torment. She will take her things and come with him immediately, for Tulbo has summoned her. This is Ivan, the Terrible. Dahe asks what he just said, but Ivan simplifies it. Tulbo has summoned her. She must prepare to leave immediately. Dahe is deeply confused by this. How can Tulbo summon her? They are all dead as well. Why isn't Tulbo giving this message to her personally? Ivan confirms that yes, he is dead. He doesn't even try to hide it. But so what? Dahe refuses to go because now she has a family. She cannot abandon them. Ivan is baffled. She's speaking as if those humans are her real family. Dahe had expected something like that to be obvious. These humans took care of her, while Tulbo abandoned her and disappeared to who knows where. They gave her a place to stay and a life, so it is her right to call them family. Ivan grows irritated at her tone and recalls he heard she was stupid, but this is too much. He seizes her tightly and asks if what they did could really be called taking care of her. She should look at her skinny body first. Who has been taking care of whom, huh? She's being exploited because of her stupidity, so she should wake up as a zodiac sign. The only family she will ever have is them. Still, Dahe has no will to leave. After the canon and the manager finish eating, they begin chatting about various things while walking. But that's when Ju appears and asks the canon if he is Lai Yuden, the CEO of Schwein Entertainment. I'll still call him the canon, because that's what he is. He confirms that he really is. Then Ju tries to ask him something, but Yelmer pushes her aside and asks him if he's a pig. Ju immediately confronts him, since that is a very rude thing to ask someone. But Yelmer doesn't understand. He's asking the right question. This man has the greasiest face known to mankind, a belly that could crush any castle wall, and a bald haircut. He is the living symbol of a pig. Jumu still tells him it's wrong, but the canon starts to get angry, since this boy just called him a pig, so he demands that he repeat it. The manager tries to stop him, saying he was probably just complimenting how handsome he is. But even as they're on the verge of killing each other, the canon still tries to get to him. The manager begs him to restrain himself since she can't let him go to prison again. They should calm down, they've eaten well, and they're happy, right? Because of her incessant chatter, the canon now has a new target for his anger. Inside the waiting room, Dahe is biting her nails while waiting with the food beside her, hoping everything will turn out okay. When they finally arrive, she jumps up quickly and realizes she needs to tell him something. But then she notices the manager's injured face and asks what happened. She immediately runs to her, but the canon says she deserved it. Dahe asks if he really hit her, but he observes that it was the most natural thing, since she was trying to manipulate him as usual. Dahat is very worried about the manager and wonders what they should do, but the canon finds the food on her table and asks what this is. He has eyes so he can see it clearly. He stomps on the food and says all she wants is to eat, right? like a damn pig. Daha is wounded by his words, but still runs up to him and tells him to flee because all of this was a test created by a very evil person. She knows she can't explain it well, but you should trust her. She even calls him father, which makes the cannon strike her to the ground. He doesn't want to be called father by a gluttonous pig. Ivan emerges from the other room, eager to see that he now has justification. He is someone who cannot control his emotions and unleashes them on others, whether physically or otherwise. He also has a tongue that deserves to be cut out and thrown to the dogs, but as he had already told Daha, someone like him could never be part of another's family. He seizes his fat head and asks what he thought would happen if he kept living this way. Even if Evan hadn't come, only hell awaited him, and he would suffer like the pathetic scum he is. He tells Daha he will kill him now, and she will let go of her earthly desires. He will also deal with the woman, but when he turns to check, he sees Ju holding her and asking what they're going to do now. At the same time, Yamra holds Daha and says there's no need for questions. The victims always come first. As soon as Evan asks what they are doing, Yamra takes a deep breath and yells for Ju to run, but she wonders what they'll do with the one being held. Yamra just stares at her and declares that this particular piece of trash will be properly disposed of. Ivan orders them to put the sinners down, but Yamra says he doesn't want to. Ivan clarifies that he doesn't mean for him to capture them. They will come here immediately. Yomra asks why he would do that, since Ivan himself said he'd do something to them if they did. Ivan has had enough and starts charging at him. Yomra thinks he needs to stay composed because even though Ivan is trying to look agitated and furious, he's constantly glancing around for a way out of his dilemma. But why is he still holding that fat one in his arms? If only he could hide Daha, he could fight, but even then, innocent people would be caught up in it. He urges Dahe to wake up while Ivan tries to strike him. An attack Yamra manages to dodge, but the doubt about what to do still lingers in his mind. How can he fight without causing collateral damage? Ivan knows he'll just keep running, so he won't give him a choice. He'll force him. He hurls a slab of pavement directly at a mother playing with her child. Yomra can't reach her in time, but Ju can. She grabs the slab, using the momentum to throw herself out of the way and collide with a nearby wall. The mother wonders what just happened, but soon everyone receives a message on their watches. A disaster alert has been issued as a dead presence has been detected and everyone must evacuate quickly. The mother finally understands what's happening and tells her daughter not to cry as she calmly evacuates. Ivan is irritated that he couldn't hit his target because of that Undertaker, but Yamra must have seen his message, right? If he dares to run, he'll kill the humans. The only thing he wants is that zodiac sign, so they better hand her over. Yelmer isn't even listening. He's just relieved that this idea triggered the alarm, which gives him a little breathing room. Ivan tells him to listen, but that's when Yelmer simply leaps, letting Ivan follow and attempt to strike him with an attack he couldn't possibly avoid in midair. Yelmer agrees he can't dodge it, but neither can Ivan. He summons the manifestation of hell beneath them, driving them both into the underworld, and Yamra easily blocks Evan's attack. Nomeng also appears and recognizes this bastard. He's Evan the Terrible, isn't he? A man who lived his life with the fury of lightning. His father abandoned his first wife because she couldn't bear children, then took another woman who gave birth to Ivan. The archbishop wasn't pleased with this conduct, so he cursed his bloodline. His son would be wicked from the very beginning. His country would be stained with the corpses of innocents, and blood would flow like rivers. Because of his son's thirst for blood and chaos, his very nation would be destroyed. Ivan tries to strike Yamra, who merely dodges and asks Nomeng if his madness has worsened with age. Nomeng confirms it, noting that Ivan had also beaten his pregnant daughter-in-law brutally. After missing another strike, Ivan says he killed someone back then. Afterward, the crown prince cursed him to death, and that was when his madness, which had quieted for a time, returned. Yamra is enraged to see him crying over his actions, since sinners cannot feel remorse for the people they've murdered. Nomeng tries to ask something, but Yelmer cuts him off, saying to forget it. What they need to do first is what they do with all sinners: punish them severely. But before he can act, Ivan strikes him with a powerful attack, and Nomeng scolds him, saying you can't attack someone in the middle of a speech. He also asks Yamra if he's alright, and Yamra grips him firmly, saying he'd like to borrow his mantle for a moment, because he needs to deal with this bastard efficiently. Nomeng refuses to hand over his mantle and starts smacking him. Since the last time he lent it to him, Yamra caused chaos. Yamra says he doesn't need to be so stingy. He'll only use it for a minute and then give it back. Nomeng knows he's a forgetful idiot, but his mantle has a side effect. When he tries to explain what it is, Ivan attacks again, making Nomeng shout at him, asking why the hell he's attacking, and right in the middle of him talking too. Ivan just strikes again, saying not to lower your guard when there's a lion in front of you. To spare everyone further embarrassment, Yamra hits him before he can say anything more, though Ivan didn't expect such speed. He tries to speak again, but that's when Yamra punches him, bouncing him across the water. Ivan begins charging his power and wonders what this guy is, since he certainly doesn't seem human. There's nothing he can do in this situation except use all his strength. He starts gathering power with both hands, but Yamra doesn't move, making him wonder what the reason is. Anyone could guess he's preparing a massive attack, but that bastard simply won't budge. That's when he understands. He tries to speak again, and Yamra punches him. Nomeng understands as well, Yomra is hitting him every single time he talks. That's how his supervisor can be truly petty. Ivan is now genuinely enraged and asks how he dares to toy with him like this. But Yomra instantly teleports behind him and says he must not know who's hitting him, but he'll find out soon enough. Burn, Sinner, Hellfire. He activates his ability and strikes Ivan, who is defenseless against the attack, though it doesn't burn him completely. Yomra thinks it's just like when he dealt with Uchi. He has no power, no sword, no mantle. He needs to obtain one of them, or at least find something that can serve temporarily. Ivan strikes him again and finally realizes who he's dealing with. He must be the king of the underworld. Yomra, punish the lightning. With those words, he unleashes a powerful shock against Yomra, and Noming is surprised that his mantle isn't electricity. It's lightning. Ivan uses the momentum to strike Yomra directly in the stomach and asks what he thinks now. It must feel as if every fiber of his being is burning. No matter how tough he is, being struck directly by lightning isn't something easily endured. Yomra is also surprised that his mantle truly was lightning, but he laughs in Ivan's face, because this actually makes things much easier. Ivan is shocked to see that he suffered no damage at all, so Noming says it's a shame he had to face Yomra. Lightning doesn't work on him. He may be the weakest version of himself right now, but Ivan won't be able to do anything. Ivan has had enough and unleashes strike after strike, but Yomra just relishes the sensation of his muscles loosening as he walks through the assault. Since Ivan deserves an explanation, Yomra says he adapted to lightning. His former employer was an extremely abusive man, and he got used to it after being struck so many times. He probably won't understand with words alone, so he'll show him. He asks the Jade Emperor to unleash his best strike against him, but nothing happens, so Yomra calls him a senile old man, which causes angry bolts of lightning to rain down on him. At the mall, Ju finishes arranging a few things and tells Biku, who had also come there, that almost everything is ready. Biku thanks her for the help, since they finished much faster thanks to her. Ju says it was nothing, and that she should be the one grateful, as she never expected her to arrive so quickly. Thanks to their efforts, the civilians managed to evacuate safely. Biku asks if Yomra is fighting that dead one right now, and Ju confirms it. They both went to the underworld so he could deal with him. Biku can only imagine what that place looks like now, but then asks if she found the pig, Daha. Ju says yes, they did, but Biku is worried, since she had met her a few times in the past as well, and even then, Daha never listened, even when Biku suggested another workplace. It seems she must have a family to support. Ju thinks about that word, remembers what Cannibal did to her, and her expression darkens. She says what Daha has is not a family. She only believes those horrible people are her family, but everything will be fine because Yomra is there and he won't let any sinner escape. While the fight between Yomra and Avon continued, Cannonball couldn't believe what he was seeing, and he also thought himself lucky that the bastard dead man had thrown him aside. If he hadn't, he would have been caught in that attack and probably killed. He then called for Daha, who was in total shock and could barely do anything. He grabbed her and demanded to know where they were. She should tell him everything she knew. Dahai only called him father, which enraged him again. He had already said he didn't want to be called father by a pig, and how much longer would they have to pretend they were a family? He hated her deeply. Half the time he could barely understand her because she stuttered constantly. Was she going to answer the question or get the same treatment as the director? Those bastards behind them came from her world, they were connected to her. So why was he dragged into this as well? It was all her fault. She should get him out of here now while he was still being merciful. With tears streaming down her face, Dahai still called him father, but Cannonball told her to stop it. She was never his daughter, not for a second. The Jade Emperor's strike makes even faint instantly, and since Yomra was finished with that sinner, he turns his attention to Cannonball, noting that he never understood his actions from a logical standpoint. But why is she enduring all of this? Cannonball jumps behind her and threatens to snap her neck if he takes one more step. Yomra asks the pig what she is doing, making Cannonball think he's talking to him, but he confirms he isn't. He's talking to her. She is one of the 12 zodiac signs. Why is she accepting this unjust treatment from that fat man? Dahai greets him while avoiding eye contact and says it's been a while since they last met. Yomra asks what happened all this time. Any help from her would be welcome right now. She doesn't say a word, making Cannonball think of a different method to guarantee his safety. He tells Yomra he wants to negotiate, that he'll hand over this useless piece of trash if Yomra lets him walk out of here. She does everything he says anyway, so he'll just order her to go with him. All Yomra has to do is leave him alone. Isn't that a win-win situation? Suddenly, Ivan rises from his stupor and comments that he's never seen such arrogance. He spits out whatever comes from his gaping mouth without thinking of the consequences. A mere human dares. Out of everyone, he'll be the one to shut that filthy mouth, because that zodiac belongs to Tilbo and to no one else. Cannonball has the audacity to shout back. That girl is his property, his bargaining tool, and no one else's. Ivan calls him a fool, one who expects everything to go his way without even knowing where he is. As the two yell louder and louder, Daha can only tremble and cry. Suddenly, Nomeng interrupts the shouting match and asks Ivan if he really just said Tilbo. He warns him not to speak that name so casually, or he will be severely punished for it. Nomeng's aura begins to swell as he demands to know if Tilbo really sent him. Ivan doesn't understand. Wasn't this guy just a pet? Yomer stops him from unleashing literal hellfire upon Ivan and reminds him of the most important thing in every mission. Nomeng knows he must focus on the victim. He apologizes for his sudden actions. Yomer crouches and tells Cannonball to step back a little because he wants to speak with Daha. Cannonball says he won't move an inch unless Yomer lets him leave, but Yomer seizes him and explains that if he hears one more word out of him, he'll rip out his tongue, hang him upside down, and use his rotting guts to decorate the halls of hell. Cannonball pisses himself upon hearing this, and Yomer simply tosses him aside. He steps closer to Daha and asks why she wants a family. She explains that there's no way to have something like that in hell, and since humans seem happy because of it, she grew envious. She thought that if she got a family, she would be happy, but now she knows it was an extremely foolish thought. She will never again consider anyone family, no matter what. Yomer gently calls her name and asks if she wants to reincarnate with him as family. Daha asks if what he's saying is really true, and Yomer confirms that it is. If they hold hands like this and reincarnate together, they will become a true family. Doesn't that sound much better than what she is now? Daha starts crying even harder upon hearing this and asks if it would really be alright. Yomer says of course it would, but they must make a promise to seal it forever. He stands and extends his hand to her, and she promises as well. She hugs him afterward, deeply grateful for what he has done. Yomer embraces her back and says that from now on, they will rely on each other. Out of nowhere, Daha begins to glow red, and Yomer's heart glows too as she takes on a new form. Nomeng never expected her to open her heart completely. Her destiny, once written with Tulbo, is now transforming into a bond with Yomer. Ivan can only watch as this happens, until Cannonball crawls up to his leg and says you must need Daha. He'll hand her over if Ivan gets him out of there. Ivan is ready to crush his head right then and there, but Nomeng tells him to wait. As soon as possible, Yomer will decide his fate. The black flame surrounding Daha grows even stronger, and Ivan finally remembers what Tulbo had told them. Bring the Zodiacs before Yomer regains his power. But now it seems he has failed his one task. Once the bond is successfully established, Daha emerges wearing a beautiful red dress and is now a direct subordinate of King Yomer. Now even understands what Tulbo was afraid of as he can feel Yomer's power rising. In a moment of desperation, he thinks he must do something and gathers every ounce of strength into one last strike, believing they will both die here. He charges with impressive speed, but Nomeng calls him a fool who doesn't understand what it truly means to become a subordinate. Daha and Yomer are now bound by fate, and she receives a portion of his divine authority. In return, Yomer gains something incredibly powerful, a mantle. Its very activation makes even regret ever being born. The true ability of this mantle is Chenya, the devouring field. Ivan now understands who he has been fighting all this time. He understands who the true Yomer is. Now he knows why Tulbo dares not disrespect his name. Now he knows he will suffer an eternity in hell. After the ability consumes Ivan, Yomer releases it and calls for Nomeng, who immediately bows before him. He tells Nomeng that the man he just devoured was one of Tulbo's subordinates. He's going to tear through him a bit before casting him into hell. But while doing so, he must extract any information about that bastard Tulbo, because it seems he's plotting something unexpected. Nomeng says to consider it done. Things like that are his specialty after all. Yomer then approaches Cannonball and apologizes for making him wait so long, but now it's his turn to be judged, so he should be a good little sinner and keep quiet. He grabs his head and he immediately starts screaming, saying he wants to speak with Daha. All he wants is a chance to talk to her, just one. Yomer throws him in front of her and he immediately begins apologizing at her feet. He had been too harsh on her for too long, and if things kept going this way, something horrible would happen. He is begging. He swears he will never hit her again or speak cruel words, so he pleads with all his might for her to spare his miserable life. Yomer asks what she wants to do, and Daha decides to forgive him, because even if he treated her badly, he still took care of her. Cannonball asks if she would really do that for him, and she confirms it. She forgave him. Cannonball goes to Yomer's feet and says that since she forgave him, he'll let him go now, right? Unfortunately for him, Yomer's gaze makes it clear what will happen to this fat man. He seizes him and says he simply doesn't understand. Just because he was forgiven, he's happy. Cannonball argues that forgiveness means reduced punishment. Yomer says that just because the victim forgave him doesn't mean the pain he caused will disappear. The crimes he committed will remain forever in the victim's memory. If forgiveness truly erased every crime, it would mean he could simply oppress the weak because they would forgive him. Unfortunately for him, he doesn't operate like humans, and even though he doesn't know everything about them, he will not allow a single sin to go unpunished. He slams him to the ground and announces that the Punisher never forgets a sin. He will deliver his judgment, and since this sinner's tongue is sharp and his body often wounds like a blade, until that blade is completely worn down, he will climb the mountain of thorns without using arms or legs. After that, his guts will be perfectly torn apart to serve as decoration. Rest in shit, Cannonball. You'll be forgotten in about 3 minutes. Eventually, Yamura appears back in the real world and Juwoo, who had been patiently waiting for him, notes that he took longer than expected but asks if everything went well with Daha. Yamura, now with a weary expression, says it was resolved. Juwoo notices his face and asks about it, so he explains that when he delivers judgments like that, even he eventually runs out of energy to continue. In response, Juwoo gives him a fish-shaped pastry she bought and asks if it's good. Yamura asks where she got it, and as they leave the mall, she says there's a shop just ahead. Thanks to Biku, who gave her some extra time, she was able to buy it for him since she figured he would be hungry. Yamura watches her as she hops along the sidewalk and says he worked hard today, so they should wrap things up and head home. Yamura finishes his pastry and also hops along the sidewalk, smiling at the simplicity of human life. In Biku's office, her assistant says they detected dead activity in 5 locations across the country. Biku understands that these locations are also where the 12 zodiacs are suspected to be. Certainly, it's no coincidence, but she's also curious about what Juwoo reported regarding the incident at the mall. The assistant says they haven't confirmed everything yet, but according to his findings, the dead man was a subordinate of Tulbo, and Tulbo himself seems to be gathering the 12 zodiacs for something. Biku wonders why he is doing this, since they are his former subordinates and should simply obey his orders, but instead, he is using force. The timing also fits, since the dead have become much more restless after Yamura came to this place. Tulbo must have felt his pressure the moment he appeared and is gathering the zodiacs for some kind of plan. Suddenly, what look like stars begin to shine intensely in the sky, which confuses Biku, but she eventually understands what it is. She says that Bastard played it this way because he knew they would notice and wouldn't follow him after that mistake. She quickly scribbles something on paper and orders it to be sent to Yamura immediately. He understands, but then she suddenly pushes him against the wall and says she also has another very important mission for him. She whispers something in his ear as shadowy figures slowly approach. She then shoves him again and says this mission is of the highest importance, his very life literally depends on it. She pushes the young man away and explains that this was their only chance. The other man stares at her and says she already knows why they're there, so she should prepare to leave. Tulbo is summoned them all. Biku tries to buy as much time as possible, asking why Tulbo is suddenly gathering the zodiacs so aggressively. What is he trying to accomplish with all of this? She doesn't understand since he wasn't like this before. Janwoo isn't there for idle talk, so he draws his sword hilt and strikes Biku 3 times, putting her on the ground instantly. He orders his subordinates to take her, while the assistant can only watch, not knowing what to do in that situation. Unfortunately for him, Janwoo notices and wonders if there are rats in the building. That makes the assistant bolt, and one of Janwoo's subordinates asks if they should pursue. He says there's no need to waste energy and orders one of the dead to open a portal, since they're going after the other zodiacs. Once it's done and everyone begins to pass through, a dead man with the appearance of a monk asks if he can slip away for a while. The red-haired dead man remarks that he's doing it again, just like last time. Does he really enjoy tormenting humans that much? The heretic monk says those are harsh words that certainly have nothing to do with him, but Janwoo allows it, with one condition. If he encounters Yamura, he is not to even think about fighting. The red-haired dead man says to call him if he finds anything fun to do, and the heretic monk smiles, saying of course, why wouldn't he? The next day, Yamura and Juwoo kick open a door early in the morning, and they've apparently been abruptly summoned to a case, for which Juwoo apologizes, but Yamura only wonders what happened for them to be moving so early. Juwoo explains that the headquarters of the Undertakers was attacked by the dead, and many of them had shrouds, so the entire area around headquarters was sealed off. A taxi driver calls them over and drives off immediately when they get in. Juwoo asks him to take them as close to the restricted area as possible and also helps Yamura with his seatbelt. He wonders how they could have been attacked so easily, since they're supposed to be the ones capturing the dead. Juwoo sighs and explains that it's more complicated than that. He should remember the first conversation with Biku. Yamura recalls that she said how humans struggle to protect themselves since they're much weaker than the dead. Is that it? Juwoo confirms. 21 years ago, after the dead suddenly appeared, the Undertaker Association was founded, and its members are treated almost like public servants. She tries to explain in more detail, but notices he's staring at her like an idiot, remembering what Noming said. If he looks like a brainless fool, she should explain it as if she were talking to a child. She thinks for a few seconds and finally comes up with a good explanation. The Undertakers are like police officers for the dead. They protect people from the dead and are paid by the state. Normally, a skilled Undertaker can handle 3 dead at once, but that only applies to regular dead. Those who committed heavier sins and wandered through the pits of hell for longer are difficult to defeat without shrouds. To simplify the levels of strength, the dead are stronger than humans, but humans with shrouds are stronger. On the other hand, dead with shrouds are even stronger, but you should already know that, right? The dead with shrouds are called chunja. Yamura is satisfied with the explanation, But it's time to move as they've arrived at headquarters and what they find is nothing but dust and rubble. Yeomra tells her not to worry, whether they're regular dead or Chunja, they just need to capture them and everything will be fine. Noming suddenly appears from his daily torture session and remarks that things may not be as simple as he expects. Ju notices the blood on his face and asks if he's okay, but Noming says it's not his. Yeomra asks if he managed to extract anything from Avon, and Noming replies that he tried to get everything out of him gently. But in the end, Ivan begged for mercy because he knew nothing else. It turns out he knew very little, except for one thing. Some of his subordinates are now joining Tilbo. Ju thinks that's good news since they might convince them to join their cause, but upon seeing Yeomra's expression, she falls silent. He asks how many there are and Noming says he doesn't know. Ivan was practically useless. Yeomra sighs and comments that things are going to get very difficult from now on, but he hopes at least it's not Janwoo or Bulgo, because if it's either of them, the situation will be far worse. A dead man hides behind a slab of stone preparing to attack them, eager for new targets. Yeomra tells Ju to contact headquarters and report that reinforcements are on the way and will arrive soon. From there to their location, they'll take the shortest route and send every dead they encounter straight back to hell. On BBC News, a reporter says that patients who had been receiving psychiatric help for depression were seen leaving the hospital all at once. This nationwide phenomenon has been controversial, as most of the patients were born in the year of the pig. Now they will hear from Professor Kim Tong. He confirms that he sees this incident as the beginning of a new social phenomenon. The zodiac, based on year of birth, divides people into 12 spirit animals, such as the rat, ox, and pig. It follows the order from the rat, the first, to the pig, the last. If you are born in the year of the rat, you are a rat. In the year of the rooster, you are a rooster, and so on. Although it is seen as a folk tale, recently unusual phenomena have been occurring everywhere. People born in the year of the pig have been suffering from depression, and those born in the year of the sheep are becoming very religious. The crime rate has also risen, especially murders among those born in the year of the snake. They continue researching as they believe something is affecting people. The reporter thanks him for the comments and moves on to other news. Last night, the Undertaker Association was attacked by the dead, resulting in casualties. Now they will connect with the reporter on site, Park Da-hoo. He explains that even at this hour, the dead are still rampaging. Undertakers with shrouds are doing everything they can to contain the threats, but strangely the dead seem to be acting in an organized manner, and Chunja are everywhere, making subjugation difficult. He is trapped in a temporary shelter and everyone waits for reinforcements with their hearts in their throats. If the dead manage to break through the barrier, something horrible will happen, and they may not make it out alive. Unfortunately for him, his words come true when the barrier is destroyed and the dead begin to pour in with the monk at the front. He begins chanting Buddhist prayers and declares that a massacre will truly happen here. Eyes so pitiful, the living are truly sorrowful. He also asks if they are hiding someone there, but no one understands what he means. The Buddhist lets the dead do as they please, forcing the Undertakers to activate their shrouds. The leader orders that the wounded be taken out, and they will hold the defense in the meantime. Everyone uses their abilities to kill any dead that approach, but even though they manage to rescue some and eliminate large groups of dead, it is clear they are losing ground. The leader realizes they are slowly being crushed and doesn't know what to do. Suddenly, a ray of hope appears as one of the men says reinforcements have arrived. The leader is overjoyed to hear this and asks how many, and the man replies that there are only 2. The leader thinks he meant 200, which would be enough, but the man's expression makes him think maybe 20, which would also be acceptable. When the man's face fills with despair, the leader realizes only 2 people are coming, which means they are truly doomed. The monk appears behind him and says they live in unfortunate times, as even the gods seem to have abandoned them. The leader can tell just by looking that the dead in front of him is far too strong for him to do anything, and now his life is in his hands. The monk comments that from nothing they come, and to nothing they return. Such is life, miserable and fleeting. To die without purpose, does he not consider that a waste? The leader does not answer, making the monk ask him not to be so tense, as he only wishes to talk. Did he know that Bhikkhu was already captured? The leader asks why they would do such a thing, and the monk says it doesn't matter now. The previous night when they came for her, she suddenly began spouting nonsense, old and trivial stories that had no reason to be said there. It was heard that she was once Tulbo's advisor, but with such a brilliant mind there was no reason for her to talk so much. She was buying time for a small, strange human to escape. They suspected something was wrong, searched everywhere, but still have not found him. It seems he is hiding somewhere here. The leader tells him to get to the point, and the monk smiles. He points to where the children, the wounded, and the elderly are. Surely the person they are looking for is among them. All they need to do is let him search, and if they truly do not find who they seek, he swears he will cause no further trouble and send all the dead away. To gain even more trust, the dead man says he was once a monk and has not forgotten the true value of life. That is why he promises not to hurt anyone. They just need to hand over the person hiding there. It is time to choose. Either let him in or face a fight they cannot win. The leader looks around, seeing the wounded before him and the exhausted undertakers. Biku's assistant watches from a corner and cannot believe the dead followed him all the way here. They are truly persistent. It seems they will not give up the search, and since he has nowhere left to run, he must make a decision. He cannot put all those people in danger because of him, but at the same time, Biku entrusted him with this vital mission. If he is captured, her sacrifice will have been in vain. While he is lost in thought, Ju touches his shoulder and tells him not to worry anymore. The leader's mind is crushed by the imposed choice, his moral code tested, and he cannot defend it. Suddenly, another Undertaker appears and tells him not to listen to that bastard. He may claim to understand the value of life, but his whole body reeks of blood. He must not waver in his convictions, because this man is enjoying the situation. The monk stares for a moment, then reveals his true nature. He too will leave with nothing, except for the brief pain they are about to feel. The Undertaker braces himself for death, but then a black flame strikes the monk's hand, and he recognizes whose flames these are. There is only one person who wields flames that devour everything in their path, King Yaomura, whom he now has the pleasure of seeing. During his active days as Lord of the Underworld, one of his 12 subordinates was the heretic monk Nuwu. When he was still human, he entered the den of a tiger that had captured and brutalized a novice monk. Consumed with rage at the sight, he tore the tigers apart into small pieces and left them to rot. He became a legendary figure with legendary combat skills, who abandoned every principle of a monk. Nomeng looks at him with disgust, never imagining he would actually join Tilbo. Yaomura asks what he is doing here, and Miwu remarks that he has grown splendidly since the last time they met. It seems he has been enjoying retirement quite well, hasn't he? Yaomura does not give him the satisfaction of a reply, so Miwu says he looks sharp now and wonders how he found his advent, his coming into this plane. Yaomura bristles at the petty mockery, but Miwu insists he is just joking, only happy to see him again. A small jest seemed appropriate, though he never expected Yaomura to have a new subordinate. The trials you must have faced with her must have been great. Nomeng dislikes how casually this bastard speaks in Yaomura's presence, but Niwu replies that it is only natural since they are enemies now. Still, he will ask out of pure curiosity, can't Yaomura just let him go and forget he was ever here? Yaomura says he should not even dream of it because he will tear him apart and throw him into hell. There he will uncover everything he knows, no matter how long it takes. Naiwu is pleased to see that he is still the same Yaomura as before, but warns that it will be he who brings him down. Nomeng calls him insane. Does he really think he has a chance against Yaomura now? Nu knows what he said, but there is a saying he often told his juniors. You'll never know unless you try. With that, he fills his lungs with air and begins shouting as loudly as he can, so that all the Chenja will hear. The mighty king of the underworld has appeared to seize their present. If he keeps growing stronger, and if they dare allow it, he will become an insurmountable obstacle to Tilbo. Now, while he is at his weakest, this is the moment to strike and end his life. It will begin the mission to subjugate Yaomura. As soon as he slams his staff into the ground, hundreds of Chenja appear around him, and Niwu tells Yaomura that if he dies in this battle, he hopes at least he can be reborn in paradise.